In a world obsessed with winning, with being better, faster, louder, and ahead, there are some people who quietly step out of the race. Not because they are incapable, not because they lack ambition, not because they fear effort, but because competing feels wrong to their soul. INFJs are often those people. They don't measure themselves against others. They don't chase status. They don't feel driven to prove superiority. And to many, this is confusing. So today, we explore the deeper reason why INFJs refuse to compete with anyone, and why this quiet choice is actually one of their greatest strengths. Competition is deeply embedded in modern culture. Career ladders, social comparison, achievement rankings, visibility metrics. For many personality types, competition feels motivating. For INFJs, it often feels draining. Not because INFJs lack drive, but because their drive comes from a different place. INFJs are not externally motivated. They are internally guided. And this changes everything about how they move through life. INFJs are motivated by alignment, not comparison. Most competitive systems are built on one central habit: comparison. Who is ahead? Who is behind? Who has more? Who looks better doing it? For many people, this comparison becomes the primary source of motivation. It pushes them to run faster, reach higher, and prove themselves constantly. But INFJs are wired differently. They do not wake up asking where they stand compared to everyone else. They wake up asking whether they are standing in the right place at all. When an INFJ sets a goal, their mind does not immediately scan the social landscape. Instead, it turns inward. Quietly, instinctively, they ask questions that are invisible to others. Does this feel meaningful to me? Does this align with my values? Does this path help or harm others? Does this move me closer to my purpose? These questions are not strategic. They are existential. For INFJs, motivation comes from inner coherence, from the feeling that their actions, values, and identity are moving in the same direction. Competition disrupts this coherence. The moment they begin measuring themselves against others, they feel something subtle but powerful slip out of place. Their attention moves away from purpose and toward performance, away from meaning and toward image. And that shift feels deeply uncomfortable. So INFJs step back. Not because they lack drive, but because they refuse to let comparison rewrite their inner compass. Competition feels emotionally empty to INFJs. INFJs crave depth in everything they do. Depth in conversations. Depth in relationships. Depth in work. Depth in purpose. Competition, by its nature, often strips experiences down to surface outcomes. Winning, losing, ranking, recognition. For INFJs, this feels incomplete. Winning without meaning feels hollow. Being praised without purpose feels empty. Advancing without alignment feels wrong. They may reach the finish line and still feel untouched inside. INFJs are not impressed by success that costs integrity. They are not inspired by applause that asks them to betray their values. They do not want achievements that feel disconnected from who they truly are. They would rather move slowly with meaning than quickly with ego. They would rather grow quietly than rise loudly. Because for INFJs, fulfillment is not about being seen. It is about being true. INFJs do not see life as a zero-sum game. Many competitive systems are built on scarcity. If one wins, another must lose. If someone rises, someone else falls. If one shines, another is dimmed. INFJs instinctively reject this framework. It does not match how they experience life. They believe growth does not require domination. They believe fulfillment does not require comparison. They believe purpose is not limited. When they see others succeed, they do not feel threatened. They feel curious, inspired, hopeful. Authenticity energizes them far more than victory. INFJs sense that life expands when people grow into themselves, not when they are pushed down so someone else can rise. So the idea of competing for limited space feels unnatural, almost artificial. They are not trying to take someone else's place. They are trying to find their own. INFJs are deeply affected by the emotional cost of competition. Competition rarely exists without emotional side effects. Pressure, anxiety, comparison, insecurity, resentment. Many people feel these emotions faintly and move on. INFJs feel them deeply. They sense when competition erodes compassion, when ambition overrides empathy, when success demands emotional hardness. They feel it in conversations that become transactional, in environments where people stop listening and start positioning, in moments where kindness becomes weakness, and something inside them tightens. So they quietly step away, not because they cannot compete, but because they refuse to lose themselves in the process. They know the cost is not just emotional exhaustion, it is the slow erosion of their inner softness. And that is a price they will not pay. INFJs define success internally. For INFJs, success is not a public measurement. It is a private experience. It is not about recognition. It is not about status. It is not about outperforming others. Success feels like living with integrity, creating meaningful impact, having emotionally honest relationships, feeling at peace internally. These things cannot be ranked. They cannot be quantified. They cannot be compared. So competition feels irrelevant. You cannot win at inner peace. You cannot outscore someone's integrity. You cannot rank emotional honesty. INFJs know this intuitively. And once you define success internally, external competition loses its grip. INFJs feel no urge to prove their worth. INFJs do not feel a constant need to prove their intelligence, kindness, or depth. Their sense of worth lives quietly inside them. This does not mean they never doubt themselves. INFJs doubt deeply. But validation does not sustain them. External approval fades too quickly. Praise feels momentary. Recognition does not anchor them. Competing often requires constant proof, constant performance, constant visibility. INFJs find this exhausting. They prefer quiet self-trust over loud affirmation, inner certainty over public approval. They would rather be grounded than impressive. INFJs experience competition as disconnection. Competition separates. It creates winners and losers, hierarchy and distance, comparison instead of connection. INFJs feel this separation immediately. They value cooperation, understanding, and shared growth. They want to build alongside others, not above them. Environments where people are reduced to metrics feel cold to them. Places where worth is measured numerically feel dehumanizing. INFJs want to understand people, not outperform them. They want to connect, not conquer. And when competition blocks connection, they step away. INFJs are future-oriented, not ego-oriented. INFJs think in long arcs. They ask, what kind of life am I building? Who am I becoming? What impact will this have over time? Competition often focuses on short-term wins, immediate gains, visible victories. INFJs look beyond that moment. They do not want to win at something that leads to burnout. They do not want success that leaves them empty. They do not want achievement that requires ethical compromise. They would rather move steadily toward a life that feels whole. INFJs feel physical signals when competition is wrong. For INFJs, misalignment is not just mental. It is physical. It shows up as tension, fatigue, a quiet emotional heaviness. Competitive environments often trigger these signals. Their body tells them before their mind does. And INFJs listen. They trust discomfort as information, not weakness. As guidance, not failure. When their body resists a path, they pause. Because for INFJs, alignment is not optional. It is essential. INFJs are not passive, they are purpose-driven. Refusing to compete does not mean INFJs lack ambition. They work intensely when something matters to them. But their effort is directed inward and forward, not outward and upward. They compete only with their previous selves. They ask, am I growing? Am I learning? Am I staying true? This internal competition feels constructive, not draining. INFJs prefer collaboration over domination. INFJs thrive in cooperative environments. They believe shared success is more meaningful than individual victory. They enjoy uplifting others, supporting growth, creating harmony. Competition disrupts this flow, so they choose collaboration whenever possible. INFJs see how competition damages the soul. Over time, competition can create cynicism, emotional armor, fear-based motivation. INFJs do not want this future for themselves. They want to remain emotionally open, to feel deeply, to care freely, to connect authentically. Competition often demands emotional hardening. INFJs refuse that trade. INFJs feel misunderstood for this choice. Others may label INFJs as unambitious or passive. This misunderstanding hurts. INFJs care deeply about purpose and impact. They simply refuse to define success by domination. They are not avoiding effort. They are avoiding emptiness. INFJs walk a different path. INFJs build lives that may look quiet from the outside, but inside, they are rich with meaning. They pursue depth over speed, alignment over applause, integrity over recognition. They do not race. They walk intentionally. INFJs refuse to compete because their spirit is not built for rivalry. It is built for meaning. They are not here to win against others. They are here to become fully themselves. They do not chase validation. They cultivate inner peace. They do not measure success by comparison. They measure it by alignment. And while the world celebrates winners, it quietly needs those who refuse to play a game that costs the soul. INFJs are not behind. They are simply moving in a direction where competition is unnecessary. Because when you know who you are, there is no one left to compete with.